watching NotesIn9.
Hello, and welcome to NotesIn9. I'm David Leedy. Episode 114, Using Wrappers with XPages. Real XPagers do not root for the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's for you, Aaron. Okay, so before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about XPages and Twitter Bootstrap. If you used to watch old episodes of NotesIn9, and if you did, God bless you. But I did do a couple shows on Blueprint CSS, which I really liked at the time as an alternative to One UI, and that gave me a grid and allowed me to place things on the web page nicely, and it took a lot of pain away. Well, Blueprint CSS is kind of like a dead project now, and really the granddaddy or the king of the hill right now is Twitter Bootstrap, and that's a UI and JavaScript framework that's done by a couple of basically geniuses who used to work at Twitter, or maybe they still do, and that gives us a grid. It gives us these a lot of nice stylings, some JavaScript components that use jQuery, and it works fairly well. Some of it, at least, works fairly well with XPages, kind of right out of the box. It's not to say that we don't still like One UI. I mean, there's a lot of good things about One UI for accessibility. It's built into the product. It can deal with like left to right and right to left language and stuff like that. But there's just a lot of interest out there in Bootstrap. There's a lot of additional resources and websites like Bootsnip, and there's this Bootstrap site, and there's a lot of material out there. And the one thing that Bootstrap seems to have going for it, which One UI does not, is it's responsive. So it's a little easier to target multiple devices, I guess. For that, I haven't really played with the responsiveness nature of it yet, but it is in there. And actually, Bootstrap 3 is coming out soon, which kind of like has this mobile first mentality. So anyway, there's a lot of interest in the XPages community about using Bootstrap with XPages. And recently, Mark Lusink has created this site called bootstrap4xpages.com, where he's going to have some examples and materials there. And that may or may not be the center point for a possible community effort to try to do more with XPages and Bootstrap. So I encourage you to really check out that website as well. Now in OpenNTF, there's this guy, Oliver Bus, I hope I pronounced it right, who has contributed a Bootstrap UI template kit to OpenNTF to get you started. And I've not downloaded that yet. I've made some of my own custom controls with Bootstrap, and they're really not that hard to do. I believe he's already done some of that work for you, so that's kind of cool to see. And that is on my list to see. And just the other day, Steve Zavaki, a previous contributor to NotesIn9, on his blog at notespeak.blogspot.com has a great article in there on using the modal dialog and creating a modal dialog custom control, which that I'm interested in because I tried to do that and I failed. So hopefully he has the solution on there on how to like really do a Bootstrap modal dialog. And I'm trying to get Henning on the show as well. Henning Schmidt. He was, I think, one of the first guys to really start with a couple of different Bootstrap-related articles in his blog. So I've linked to one there, but he's got a couple there that he did last year. So you might want to check that out. And I know Kathy, who was actually on last show, NotesIn9, she has some blogs. She does the presentation at New England Lug on Bootstrap, and has had some blogs that are available on her site or on the Social Biz user group site. You might have to go over there to that. That's a good site over there. And there's other people blogging about this too. So again, my point is that there seems to be a kind of a growing interest in Twitter Bootstrap. So I wanted to mention here with some starting places for integrating that with your XPages. I will tell you this, even though I'm doing this Mobile Madness show, I'm trying to do a lot of mobile shows, and I know I haven't gotten my own out yet, but it's going to come or so. I'm using Twitter Bootstrap for mobile development. For my iPad app. So at the moment, I've actually kind of abandoned, and I'll talk about that in a later show, but I've kind of abandoned XPages mobile controls for my mobile app, and I'm trying, I haven't gotten too far yet, but my goal is to try to use Twitter Bootstrap as a replacement for it. And again, I'll talk about that in the more mobile show. It's not to say I don't like the XPages mobile controls, it's just there were some things that just weren't working for me. So keep that in mind. We've got XPages mobile controls. We've got, the jQuery mobile. There's that Kendo UI for mobile development. But there's also just Twitter Bootstrap too. And again, the next version is supposed to be a mobile-first kind of philosophy to it. All right, so enough of that stuff. I'm beyond excited about this new contributor. I've wanted to kind of get him on for a long time now. He's an IBMer, and it's always kind of special when I get the IBMers on the show. And not only is he an IBMer, he's a great IBMer, and it's none other than Stephan Wissel. He's a longtime Lotus script speaker. I don't know him as well as I wish I knew him, but I've talked to him several times, and he's just the nicest guy in the world. And what I like to say is this, I don't always code in XPages, but when I do, it's because I learned a lot of it from Stephan Wissel. So that's for you, Stephan. So anyway, here's Stephan. His website is whistle.net. I believe he's the actual guy who came up with the term X agent in a great blog post. And he had another great blog post on using One UI and this dummy text file that helped us out and stuff like that. And he's got this great link on there on learning XPages resources on his website. So again, he is a superstar in the XPages world, and I'm really excited to have him on here. Now, what he's going to talk about, and I'm going to call this a discussion rather than a demo. What he's going to talk about is this isn't a mobile theme here. He's going to talk about using wrappers to wrap your code from when you're dealing with server-side JavaScript or Java, and it's more of a discussion on that. So it's kind of like a higher end thing, So just it's not too specific, I guess I would say, but it's really a good concept. This pattern that he's talking about, and it's really kind of good to help shorten your code and kind of break things up. So that's what he's going to talk about. Now, also he did kind of like a different thing here, where you're actually going to see him on the video. It's a lower frame rate, so it does look a little jerky. I told him if he does that again, just give me the full frame rate, and we can handle it here at NotesIn9 Studios. And if you have any thought of me doing what he's about to do, I would not think about that, because I made a promise that I'm going to try not to put my face on the show, because I've got a face for radio and a voice for silent film. But anyway, so it's really neat what he did, though. So I am kind of interested in it, but I would have to be seriously drunk to do what he has done. So with all that crap being said, let's go to Stephan.
Hello together. Welcome to my first NotesIn9 contribution. It's about wrappers in XPages. Wrappers keep nice little things neatly packed, like chocolate or sweets. And in XPages, they keep stress packed away. It all started when I tweeted a pro tip when using Java classes in XPages: create a wrapper class with parameters and call it once from your server-side JavaScript. So David asked me to elaborate on that. So the question is, why would I want to use Java in XPages at all from server-side JavaScript? And the reason is there are a number of ready-made Java libraries you want to use, or bake your own, which make your life much, much easier. A few examples would be Apache POI or docx4j, which allows you to manipulate Office documents, or iText PDF Box, which allows you to do the same with PDF, or Apache FOP, that allows you to render stuff into PDF or JPEG. The trouble with Java and JavaScript on the server side is that JavaScript on one side is a weakly typed language, and Java on the other side is a strongly typed language. So in server-side JavaScript, I simply say var x equals 1, and in Java I say int x equals 1. And then the runtime in server-side JavaScript has to figure out, is that a 1, or is that a string 1, is that a long, or whatever. JavaScript is pretty good at figuring that out, but it sometimes breaks down when it needs to be handed over into Java. The root of the problem is that Java knows a concept that is called overloading. I have an example class behind me that's called cool stuff, and it has a method action, and that method has 3 incarnations. Each of the incarnation takes a different data type as parameter. And you find that in Java classes quite often, that you have one method you want to call, and the method can have a variation of parameters. As long as the number is different, server-side JavaScript is pretty good in figuring out which of them to call. But the very moment you have the parameters which are similar, then JavaScript starts to struggle a little bit. Just as an exercise for your personal amusement, copy that class, put it into your Domino server, and then run the Java server-side JavaScript you see on the screen there, and see what the result is. So it can be quite annoying there. So, and once you run them all, you will see that your head's going to explode. What this is about? How can we solve that? And to do that, we need a good plan. And to find a good plan, we need to go back in the year 1977 and ask an architect. In this case, we asked Christopher Alexander, who was the first one who came out with the idea of patterns. He wrote this marvelous book, A Pattern Language, Town Buildings Construction, which was not software architecture, but real architecture. And later on, this was picked up, and in 1994, Gamma, Helm, Johnson, and Visitus published design patterns, which applied the idea that Alexander had in real-life buildings to software buildings. And there's a bunch of design patterns that are available there: abstract, factory, memento, observer, prototype, and whatever. And the pattern that helps us in the game between server-side JavaScript and Java is the Facade pattern. So let's have a look at an XAgent as an example. All you see in the code in red is actually Java. And in every line, the server-side JavaScript interpreter has to look, how do I call my one of my existing variables to one of this method? Does that fit? And every one of these lines can have an error. Well, every of this line might have an overloaded function that takes the same number of parameters. I say stream source is very clearly a candidate for an overloaded constructor. So kind of a bit of messy. If I apply the Facade pattern and said I have one Java class I write myself and it only has one function, then suddenly my code becomes much cleaner. And you see in this screen, it's just a single line. If you wonder where this PDF dot comes from, in that example I managed Beam to do that. This example actually can be found on my blog, so if you want to look it up and run it on yourself, stop by at whistle.net and you will find it there. So, but the Facade pattern has another advantage when you look at XPages. Unless you're on Notes version 9, debugging of an XPage application always was a little bit of a hack. In version 9 we now have a proper server-side debugger, but if you want to test your Java classes outside and you use the Facade pattern, then you actually can simply add a void main function to your Java class and run it in a standard Eclipse instance or in the Java view of your Domino designer without having any Domino to run, without the necessity of having an NSF there. So you also can go and share these classes with people who might run other software stacks, command line Java, JEE servers, or whatever. So the Facade pattern applied gives you the advantage of cleaner code, and in my experience, the less code you have in your invents, the more code you have in your libraries, be it Java classes in libraries, be it server-side JavaScript libraries, the less maintenance headache do you have. Always keep in mind, you don't code for the compiler or the end user, you code for the poor bastard who after you has to maintain that piece of software. If you're lucky, that's yourself. If you're not lucky, that's a maniac who still maintains your address at home. Okay, that's in short. The trick is, if you have a given problem, look for a pattern. Pattern is a tested and tried and working solution for a known problem. And the pattern that works well in XPages for the game between server-side JavaScript and Java is the Facade pattern. Thank you for listening, and stop by at Twitter or my blog. Goodbye.
And that's the discussion. I thank Stephan for contributing this. I can't wait to get him on again and basically anything he wants to do. And if you have any questions for me, here's my contact information, and I thank you for your time.